Hello,
The
hello,
stream is
hello,
live.
hello. Stream is live and welcome to World Plone Day 2025, the most interesting presentation ever because it's not a presentation, there's no code, it's just questions.
Yeah, we
And
don't know
I
what will
hope
happen.
exactly, we should have some live coding, right? Like we do in Sprint, someone basically opens a computer and go with it. So let's start. David, please introduce yourself. Tell us
Yeah,
a little bit about you and how you came in contact with the Plone community.
yeah. So I'm David Glick. I have been working with Plone since 2007. When I was just out of college and got a internship at a company that was at the time called One Northwest and later Groundwire, and they were in Seattle, Washington, in the United States, and working with Plone, building websites for environmental nonprofits. So that we had like dozens and dozens of clients that all needed something pretty similar, which was, a public website with some information about the organization and a place to donate and a way to keep track of constituents. And before I got there, they had evaluated all of the CMSs that were available and had picked Plone as something that they could, roll out in a repeated way for different clients. And so that's where I got started with Plone and where I learned Python and where I sort of got started with this career, which has been the work that I've been doing for 15 or almost 20 years now. That's the start. And then I quickly became a contributor to Plone. The folks at Groundwire were very involved in the community, so they introduced me to people. And when I had problems, they told me who to talk to. And this was right around the time that Plone 3 had come out and changed everything, and everybody was trying to get used to the new ways of doing things. And I was in there talking to people, and we were trying to figure out how to take all the complexity that had been added in Plone 3 and smooth things out to actually have what we wanted for Plone 4. And so I just went into Subversion, which was what we used for source control then, and started creating a branch that was pulling together work that other people were doing and trying to create the thing that might be a good Plone 4. And that's sort of what, not that I was the only person working on it, but that was a piece of how Plone 4 happened. And since then, I've been involved in the community off and on, times when I've been very involved and times when I've been burnt out and taking a step back to let other people lead, and so that I could explore other things. But for the past few years, I came back to the community in 2022, and I've been working with Kit Concept, working on large institutional websites in Germany.
I'm going to ask you. I'm going to ask you. I already see some really nice questions here, but I'm going to go for one. Few years back, I met someone that was part of our community, and this person is not longer with us. Move on and so on, and then talking, I said, "Oh, I'm back with Plone," and that person asked me why, right? And you've been places, you've done things, right? You moved out from the Plone community and moved to new stuff, and then you came back. I know this is for each one of us is a different answer, so I would like to hear from you. Why did you choose to come back to Plone?
Yeah, so maybe to answer the question, I need to first talk about why I went away, and it wasn't so much because there was anything wrong with Plone, but I had been consulting with Plone on projects for a number of years. I mean, it was 2007 to 2017. It had been 10 years. I've been doing sort of the same thing, and I wanted to see what a different environment would be like, right? Instead of consulting, I went to work for Salesforce, which is a large company. I knew some folks there. And so I had sort of the experience of working. I got to work still with Python, still with some web stuff, but not with Plone. So I learned about Django. I learned about other things happening in the Python world. I was excited to do that. And I was excited about the thing with consulting is you always get the project to the point where the client runs out of budget and there's still things that you want to do. And you kind of feel like you don't quite get to finish it. At least the sorts of clients I was working with back then, which were mostly small nonprofits without a lot of money. And so I was excited to go work on one thing and have a little bit more focus and have that one thing be used by lots of people, everybody who was getting this product. So I went to Salesforce. I did that. I kind of got burnout on working in the corporate world. And I figured out that I didn't really get to focus as much as I thought because there were still 10 different things we were trying to do on our team at Salesforce. And I realized that while you think that there might be more stability in a big company that has, its established clients and revenue stream, actually there's just as much chaos because they're reorganizing things and different people are picking the strategy and you don't necessarily have any input into this. So I was ready to leave Salesforce, and I talked to Timo, who's the head of Kit Concept, because he's an old friend of mine, and asked him what was going on. And I was sort of vaguely aware of what had been happening in the Plone world with the creation of Volto as this new React-based front end that looked quite interesting. And Kit Concept was sort of right in the middle of making that happen. So I was excited, one, to come back to Plone as this thing that I knew but didn't, right? There was new things happening that I could, I'm always want to be in a situation where I'm learning something new. And two, I knew that I wanted to work somewhere smaller where I knew the people and could, talk to people when I didn't like something that was going on. And Plone is like family, right? There's lots of people who have been around for years. There's, of course, new folks that we tried to bring into the circle as well. But it was a much more comfortable, and it just the culture of we share with each other, right? We're a bunch of different small companies that are each building things for our clients. We're technically competitors, but it all works better for all of us if we talk about what we're doing, and there's enough problems to be solved that it works better when we divide up the work. So yeah, I've been very happy to be back in this environment, and look forward to continuing to take Plone into the future.
So let's do a small roundup. In here we have some familiar faces. Hello, Victor. Paul,
hi, everybody. I see your names in the chat.
Astrid. Brian. Hello, Alok. Brian. And now,
Yes, that's my friend from.
Yeah, now I have one question. What are you working on right now?
It sounds like such a simple question, but here I need to move my screen and show you my Kanban board here. So the stickies there are what I'm working on, or things that I want to work on. Sorry, just trying to think about how to organize the answer. One thing I'm always working on in the Plone community is just keeping up with what everybody else is doing. I try to go through my email at least once a week and triage things, find often I'm deleting, there's so many emails. I'm trying to figure out where I can actually have good input. So I look for things that are stuck or things where somebody is going in one direction and I think we need to course correct just a little bit. Or I look for things where there's 15 minutes of investigation needed to figure out what needs to happen, and then somebody else can work on it. So that's one thing. I'm also, aware of the potential for burnout from trying to do that all the time, because I have done too much in the past. And so one strategy I found for dealing with that is to make sure that I'm always also working on some project that I picked for myself because I find it interesting and not just responding to what everybody else is doing. So a couple things that I've been working on recently. Cookie Plone is a project that Erico created last year to do better scaffolding for a new Plone project. UVX Cookie Plone project, and answer the questions, and then you have what you need to start working on a Plone project. And so we've been working on various improvements and updates to that. One particular thing just this past week, we've long had this problem in Plone. Don't want to get too into the weeds, but setup tools namespaces. You can have namespace packages in Python. Plone uses them. It does it an old way. We want to move to the new way, but there's various challenges in that because the old way and the new way aren't compatible. So we've been struggling with this, and I created a little utility for trying to smooth over the differences and make the two types of namespace packages work together. It's called Horse with No Namespace, and you probably haven't seen it yet. As we start to work on the transition in some of these namespaces, you might find situations where you have installed a package, something from plone.star, and then you install some other plone.star package as an editable package because you're trying to work on a change to it, and they don't work together. And that's the situation where you might want to use this tool. So anyway, that's been a fun thing. I'm working on other things. There's client projects and some other things I've been doing in core recently, but there's other questions too, and I've only got so much time. So come back to that if we need to.
Okay, so keep going. Astrid is asking, what project are you particularly proud of and why?
This is a random one that just came into my head. There's lots of things I'm proud of that I've done in Plone, but one my mind jumped to when we were working on when I was on the Plone security team. This was a decade ago, and it's not so much what we created, but how we did it. We were in this situation where we were, receiving reports of security issues in Plone, and we had to triage and figure out, is it actually an issue? And then we would try to release a hotfix that you could install on top of your existing Plone instance that would patch whatever it needed to make it work. And so rather than making a new release that had the fix, we would do that too. But we didn't want it to only be useful if you were willing to upgrade to the new version. We wanted to have a fix that would work on older versions as well. And so the thing I'm proud of is the scheme that we had for testing this. And shout out also to Matthew Wilkes, who was involved with me on this, and probably some other people. But we had this testing harness that would install a whole bunch of versions of Plone and then install the hotfix on top of them, and then at least prove that it could start up. And I think also it tested to make sure that the security issue was fixed then. So one of many answers that could be given to this question, but that's the one that came to mind.
Good. We have an easy one now. Mr. Rob Gitema, what's the best t-shirt you got at any Plone sprint or conference? I think this is easy, right?
Well, obviously I have a Plone conference t-shirt on right now, which is the one from the 2009 conference in Budapest, Hungary, that was organized by Bala Shrey, who's now my colleague at Kit Concept. I don't know what this thing is, but some traditional Hungarian design, I imagine. So this is the t-shirt that I think is the most fun. But also, what was the actual question? The best T-shirt? The one I'm happiest to have is actually the conference I didn't go to, which was the conference in Seattle, which is where I live. But that conference was the year before I moved to Seattle and started working with Plone. So it was my colleagues at Groundwire who organized the conference, but I was not involved. But they had a leftover T-shirt that they gave me when I showed up. So I still have that one, which is, it's the gray. It has a design with concentric circles that was made by Alan Runyon's wife. And I think it says content collaboration community, which was sort of the slogan for Plone back then.
Yeah, it's interesting because I was not there as well, but I have a T-shirt. So going on and talking about old conference, let me share something here. See, I wanted to share this, right? Yeah, let's put it this way. This is the first time I saw you in person. It was in Bristol.
I thought it was Bristol, yeah.
Yes, you were already like a legend for us in Brazil. So it was really, really nice.
So that
and
was
then, of course,
2010, I think.
2010. And then the famous picture of you as with a book. Yeah. I've been bullying David because this is the book in Japanese. Yes.
There it is.
And there's a picture of David and he signed, and I kept saying to him like, oh my God, you're big in Japan. And of course, we went once to a karaoke in Tokyo, this karaoke here.
The 2018 conference in Tokyo.
Yes, and I forced him to sing Big in Japan because full circle Plone community. So that was...
I'm looking. I can't find the page that has my picture on it, but it doesn't matter. You already showed the picture.
You have a signed version. Okay, so next question is from Brian. How the Plone community changed while you were away? Was it easy, difficult to jump back in?
I was afraid that I would forget how everything worked, and that wasn't the problem. It was surprising how easy it was to remember how details of how traversal happens in Zope and weird little things like that. Yeah, the community had changed, and partly, I was consulting in Plone from 2012 to 2017, and at the beginning of that, I was very involved in core development, and then I sort of like, as I was going along, I was stepping back because of burnout and just trying to balance things. And when I was working all day on Plone, I didn't necessarily want to spend my free time on it. Oh, and I got married and had a family, so that was a piece. So all that to say, things were happening in the Plone community without me being so much aware of it, even before I left. And then I was completely out of the loop for 4 years, except for I did go to the Tokyo conference during that time. So when I came back, when I left, Volto was just getting started, right? I went to the Beethoven Sprint in 2018, and this was like, I think Rob had maybe done some playing around with a React front end for Plone, but they were just starting to build Volto. And when I came back, Volto was, a polished thing that people were deploying large sites on. So that was very exciting to see. And, as somebody who had sort of seen, when I started with Plone, there was no JavaScript, basically, right? There were like a couple one-off scripts. And then jQuery came along and we started to do progressive enhancement and like add a little bit of interactivity on the front end. And I was like building some things with React, but just like small things. And so coming back and seeing like, oh, this is how a large React application that has a router and a Redux store, and there were lots of things for me to learn. And I, am in the right place working at Kit Concept to have colleagues to go to when I have questions about how things are working. So that's been fun. But it's also, I think, been a challenge for the community because we have people who are very happy working with Classic UI and don't have a reason to use Volto. And then we have Volto as a nice option for a modern Plone site. It's great to have these two options, but it makes it more complicated to document. It makes it more complicated to strategize about how we take the community forward. And so I think it's really neat that we've arrived at this place where we view both front ends as important, and there's benefits from that to understanding what are the core pieces and what are the presentation layer of Plone. It forces us to organize things better, but there's also some growing pains and complexity that comes with it as well.
Just adding something here, our good friend Luca Fauri from Ferrara mentioning he has a t-shirt. Man, Luca, you are still fit. You do not look your age. You're what, 25 now? Okay, jokes aside, we have a question from Victor, which means it's an important one. Which is the feature improvement that you like to work the most on upcoming sprints?
Yeah, I have a couple different ideas. One, there's different categories I'm thinking of. There's the category of what's a thing that feels like an easy win, like something that we can just knock off in a day or two. Maybe not a day or two, but one sprint. And it's come up in a few different projects we've done where we have the image content type, and of course you have images that you're inserting on pages throughout the site, and you want to have a caption and a credit for where the image came from, and alt text. And we don't have some of those fields built into Plone. There are things that you have to add on, and so just adding those and making sure that they're used in the right places, both in Classic UI and Volto, seems like an easy win. Then there's the
and Rob
that's
already
the one category. Yeah,
take a look. Sorry, it's too late, Rob.
Well, this is why I'm hedging my answer here with these different options, right? The one that I think is important, but also complicated, and so I've been scared to tackle it, is support for storing blobs in S3 instead of in Postgres. There's just a lot of things to figure out about how to make that work well. The one that's like my personal interest one, but less of a pressing need, is taking a look at whether we can redo how Plone uses the catalog. There's some interesting new, there's a Postgres extension that can do a lot more search things the way that Elasticsearch does. Can we use that? But then do we have to re-architect to make, one of the things that makes Plone slow is that you have to re-index everything right away when it's edited, and can we defer that? But then we have to change a bunch of things in Plone to depend less on the catalog being immediately up to date. So that one I'm not even sure what we can do, but it would be fun to think about. And then what I'll actually end up working on this sprint is probably whatever other people are working on, and where I feel like I can help people be successful. Because I always go to a sprint thinking like, oh, this is my chance to work on this thing that I haven't been finding time for. And then I get there and I realize there's all these people here. Like, the thing I should focus on is the thing that benefits from having the right people in the room, and not just what my personal pet project is, because I can do that at any point in theory. So we will see is the answer there.
Next question is by Alok, and it's a question that every other human being on the planet wants to know the answer. How do you manage your time?
Yeah. I think a big part of the answer is realizing that I can't do everything. And so I have to prioritize. And so I try to structure my time so that trying to explain, trying to figure out how to explain or figure out what I do. sometimes I'm in triage mode, right? I'm going through my email. There's 100 new emails. I'm going through each one, and if it's something that I know somebody else is taking care of, or it looks non-controversial, or it looks like something that, I mean, often it's something that it looks like something I want, but it's just not the top of my list right now. So I delete it and, you know, wait until it comes up again. You know, I look for things where I can give some useful input. That's one way that I work. But then I also try to have a short list of things that are at the top of my list. So like right now, I know I'm trying to solve problems that are happening in Cookie Plone, because that's an important way that people get started with Plone. Documentation is at the top of my list because I know we really need it in a bunch of areas. That's one where I haven't been managing to actually spend the time, and I need to figure out how to make a block of time for me to work on actually writing some documentation. You know, there's a chunk of my time in the day that's where the priority is client work. So then I'm just not looking at my open source inbox. So yeah, I structure my time and make buckets, and I prioritize, and I am okay with not getting to everything because I have to be. That's the thing that sort of led to some of my burnout a while back. Was I was really feeling like I had to do everything. Steve Piercy, I'm looking at you. Don't get burnout, because you don't have to review every single thing. You can if you want, but just keep that in mind. When I came back to the community, I was intentionally taking a different approach of I'm going to do the things that feel good to be doing, and I'm not going to stress out if I don't get to everything.
Okay, so next question by Astrid.
I think I just answered that one, actually.
Deal. And then there's another one that it's interesting. What are your favorite hobbies or activities?
I really like spending time outside. So we've got great natural beauty around Seattle. I like to get out and go hiking with friends. We have a small garden outside the house, and I'm not a great gardener. Actually, this one, and I'll mention another hobby. It's nice to have hobbies where you don't feel like you have to be perfect at everything. You're just doing it for fun. So gardening is one of those, and then brewing beer is another one that I do occasionally. And my beer is drinkable but not great, and it's still a fun way to do something that's not looking at a screen for a while. And another one is I sing in a choir. So I have a rehearsal I'll go to this evening, and that's a nice chance to get together with people and again do something that's not computer focused.
Okay, two last questions. The first one is going to be from Brian. If you hadn't become a developer, what alternative profession could you see yourself doing?
Yeah, this has been the things I've done even from when I was a kid, right? I was playing around with computers, so it's never been a question I've had to answer. When I was in college, I started off studying history for 2 years, and then I realized that it was far too much reading and writing and thinking, and I actually liked solving puzzles. So I think the answer would have to be something else where I can solve puzzles, but I'm not sure what that would be.
And I believe the last one would be, what excites you about the future of Plone?
Being part of this community. I mean, I think in the end, I don't care what software we produce, but I have benefited so much from being friends with people in the Plone community, and I think we all do better work because we do it with each other. And so I'm excited to continue working together. Victor, Star Trek, of course. Yeah, this is maybe the way to end here. Live long and prosper, Plone.
I would like to thank for your time. I would like to thank you for being also an amazing colleague and inspiration, and for basically pushing everyone in the Plone community to work harder and learn. And I believe Mikhail already mentioned that he was glad for your code reviews, and many of us feel like that. And of course, it's always a pleasure to meet you in person. We should do that more often. Beethoven Sprint, right?
Yeah, I'll be there. I want to.
And Star Trek Convention, of course.
I want to leave with one piece of advice for everybody, which is don't be afraid to read the code, because that's how you figure out how things work. And
Or
it's
how they should work.
a great benefit of having open source.
Thank you all. Thank you for your time, David. And hope you enjoy. And please like this video, subscribe as well. Follow us on the social networks. It's important, right? And see you in other sessions of World Plone Day 2025.
Yeah, thanks to all the organizers and Eriko and the guests. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.